Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889. His birthplace was Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria. It lies very near the German border. His father was named Alois Hitler, a customs official known to be a stern man with a short temper. Hitler's mother, Clara Polzel, was Alois's third wife. Clara was much more gentle than Alois and showed young Adolf much affection. However, his early home life was not always stable. There were frequent moves due to his father's job, and these changes likely affected him. He felt a lack of strong roots. In school, Adolf did not excel greatly. He performed adequately in primary school but struggled in secondary school, particularly disliking formal discipline. He clashed with some of his teachers. His father hoped Adolf would become a civil servant, but Adolf had different aspirations. He dreamed of being an artist. After his father died in 1903, his path changed. His mother allowed him to pursue art, and he left school without qualifications. In 1907 he moved to Vienna, hoping to attend the Academy of Fine Arts. He failed the entrance examination twice, which was a bitter blow. His early years in Vienna were difficult, facing poverty and disappointment. These experiences began to shape his worldview. Before the First World War, Hitler lived in Vienna. He scraped a living selling postcards he painted and small pictures of city scenes. Life was hard and often lonely for him. He spent time in men's hostels and read widely, absorbing many political and racial ideas. Vienna was a city full of new thinking, much of it nationalistic and anti-Semitic. In May 1913, Hitler left Vienna and moved to Munich in Germany. He later claimed he wanted to avoid Austrian military service, saying he felt more German than Austrian. Munich was a vibrant city, known for its arts. He continued his life as a struggling artist, but a major event was soon to change everything. The First World War began in August 1914, news that filled Hitler with great excitement. Hitler volunteered for the Bavarian army and was accepted into the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. He served on the Western Front, often as a dispatch runner, a dangerous job carrying messages. He faced enemy fire many times and was seen as a brave soldier by some, receiving the Iron Cross, First Class, an uncommon award for his rank. The war profoundly affected Hitler. He was wounded twice during the conflict. In 1916 he suffered a thigh injury, and in 1918 he was temporarily blinded by a gas attack. He was in hospital when Germany surrendered, news that shocked and angered him. He blamed politicians and Jews for the loss, a bitterness that fueled his later political path. The war had given him a sense of purpose and deepened his extreme nationalism. After the war, Germany was in turmoil. The Kaiser had abdicated and a republic was formed. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh terms, and many Germans felt humiliated and angry. Hitler remained in the army for a time, working for the military intelligence department. His job was to inform on political groups, and he was sent to monitor the German Workers' Party, or DAP, a small nationalist group in Munich. Hitler attended a DAP meeting in September 1919, initially just as an observer, but he became involved in a heated debate, and his passionate speaking impressed the party leaders. They invited him to join the party, which he accepted, becoming member number 555. He quickly became the party's leading speaker, drawing larger crowds with his powerful oratory and helping to shape the party's platform. In 1920, the DAP was renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly known as the Nazi Party. Hitler designed its distinctive swastika flag and became the undisputed leader of the party in 1921, known as the Führer, meaning leader. The party grew, attracting disillusioned Germans and forming its own paramilitary wing, the SA, or Stormtroopers. In November 1923, Hitler attempted a coup known as the Beer Hall Putsch, trying to seize power in Bavaria with hopes of then marching on Berlin. The putsch was poorly planned and failed quickly. Police and soldiers suppressed the uprising, resulting in several deaths. Hitler was arrested and put on trial, using the event as a platform for his ideas despite the failure. Hitler was found guilty of treason and sentenced to 5 years in prison. He served his time in Landsberg prison, where his conditions were relatively comfortable. He was allowed visitors and received mail. During this time he wrote, which means, My Struggle in English. The book outlined his political ideology and future plans, detailing his anti-Semitism and desire for expansion. Hitler was released from prison early, leaving Landsberg in December 1924 after serving less than a year. The Nazi Party had been banned after the putsch, and was weakened and fragmented. Hitler set about rebuilding the party, deciding to pursue power through legal means, using elections and propaganda instead of violent revolution. Germany experienced some stability in the mid-1920s, making it harder for extremist parties like the Nazi Party to gain widespread support. However, the situation changed dramatically in 1929 with the Wall Street crash in America, which triggered the Great Depression worldwide. Germany was hit particularly hard, with businesses failing and unemployment soaring. Millions of Germans faced poverty and despair, creating political instability. People lost faith in the government and sought radical solutions to their problems. The Nazi Party exploited this desperation. Hitler, a charismatic and powerful speaker, promised to restore Germany's greatness, end unemployment and poverty, and blamed Jews and communists for Germany's troubles. His message resonated with many struggling Germans, and the Nazi Party's popularity grew rapidly. In the early 1930s, German politics was chaotic. Governments were weak and short-lived. The Nazi Party became the largest party in the Reichstag. This was the German parliament. However, they did not have a majority. President Paul von Hindenburg initially distrusted Hitler. He was reluctant to appoint him as chancellor, but conservative politicians persuaded Hindenburg. They believed they could control Hitler. On 30 January 1933, Adolf Hitler became chancellor. Once in power, Hitler moved swiftly. He aimed to establish a dictatorship. A key event was the Reichstag fire. The parliament building was set ablaze in February 1933. A young Dutch communist was blamed. The Nazis used this fire as an excuse. They claimed Germany was under threat from communists. An emergency decree was passed. This was called the Reichstag Fire Decree. It suspended basic civil liberties. Freedom of speech, press, and assembly were abolished. Political opponents were arrested and imprisoned. The Nazis targeted communists and socialists first. Concentration camps were established for political prisoners. The first major camp was Dachau. In March 1933, new elections were held. The Nazis increased their share of the vote, but they still lacked an outright majority. Hitler then pushed for the Enabling Act. The Enabling Act was passed on 23 March 1933. It gave Hitler's government the power to make laws. These laws could be made without the Reichstag's approval. This effectively made Hitler a dictator. Other political parties were soon banned or dissolved. Trade unions were also abolished. By the summer of 1933, Germany was a one-party state. When President Hindenburg died in August 1934, Hitler combined the offices of Chancellor and President. He became the Führer and Reich Chancellor. The army swore an oath of personal loyalty to him. Section 6. Remaking Germany. Nazi ideology imposed on a nation. With absolute power, Hitler began to reshape Germany. His goal was to create a totalitarian state. This meant total control over all aspects of life. The process was called Gleichschaltung, or coordination. All organizations were brought under Nazi control. This included youth groups, sports clubs, and cultural bodies. The Hitler Youth became compulsory for young Germans. It indoctrinated them with Nazi ideology. Resistance was met with brutal suppression. Propaganda played a crucial role in Nazi Germany. Joseph Goebbels was the minister of propaganda. He controlled newspapers, radio, and films. All media promoted the Nazi worldview. It glorified Hitler as Germany's savior. A powerful cult of personality was built around him. He was portrayed as a strong, decisive leader. Censorship was strict. Any ideas critical of the Nazis were banned. Books by Jewish or undesirable authors were burned. Racial ideology was central to Nazism. The Nazis believed in the superiority of the Aryan race. They considered Germans to be pure Aryans. Jews were seen as an inferior race. They were blamed for Germany's problems. Anti-Semitism became official government policy. The Nuremberg Laws were passed in 1935. These laws stripped Jews of their citizenship. They forbade marriage between Jews and non-Jews. Persecution of minority groups intensified. Jews faced increasing discrimination and violence. Their businesses were boycotted. They were excluded from professions and public life. The Kristallnacht pogrom in November 1938 saw synagogues burned, Jewish shops were looted, and many Jews were arrested. Other groups were also targeted. These included Roma people, homosexuals, and disabled individuals. Political opponents and anyone deemed asocial faced persecution. The Gestapo, the secret state police, enforced this terror. Section 7. The road to global conflict, aggression and international timidity. Hitler's ambitions extended beyond Germany's borders. He aimed to overturn the Treaty of Versailles. He wanted to restore Germany's military power. He also sought Lebensraum, or living space. This meant expanding German territory, especially in Eastern Europe. In 1935, he announced German rearmament. This was a direct violation of the treaty. In March 1936, German troops reoccupied the Rhineland. This area had been demilitarized after World War I. Britain and France protested but took no military action. Hitler grew bolder with each success. He formed alliances with other fascist powers. The Rome-Berlin Axis was established with Italy in 1936. Germany also signed the Anti-Comintern Pact with Japan. These moves strengthened Germany's international position. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria. This was called the Anschluss. Most Austrians welcomed the union with Germany. Again, the Western powers did not intervene effectively. Their policy became known as appeasement. Later in 1938, Hitler turned his attention to Czechoslovakia. He demanded the Sudetenland region. This area had a large German-speaking population. War seemed imminent. The leaders of Britain, France, Italy, and Germany met. They gathered in Munich in September 1938. The Munich Agreement was signed. It allowed Germany to annex the Sudetenland. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain claimed peace for our time. Appeasement failed to stop Hitler's aggression. In March 1939, German troops occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia. This showed Hitler could not be trusted. Britain and France finally realized war was likely. They pledged to defend Poland if it was attacked. Hitler, meanwhile, prepared for his next move. In August 1939, Germany signed a non-aggression pact. This was with its ideological enemy, the Soviet Union. The Nazi-Soviet pact shocked the world. It secretly agreed to divide Poland between them. The path to war was now clear. Section 8, the Second World War Conquest, Brutality, and Turning Tides. On the 1st of September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. This act triggered the Second World War. Britain and France declared war on Germany 2 days later. The German military used new tactics. These were called Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. It involved rapid, coordinated attacks by tanks and aircraft. Poland was quickly defeated and occupied. The Soviet Union invaded eastern Poland as agreed. A period of quiet followed on the Western Front. This was known as the Phony War. In the spring of 1940, the Blitzkrieg was unleashed again. Germany invaded Denmark and Norway in April. In May, German forces attacked France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. These countries were rapidly overrun. British forces were evacuated from Dunkirk. France surrendered in June 1940. Hitler seemed invincible. He then planned to invade Britain. This was called Operation Sea Lion. The Battle of Britain was fought in the skies. The Royal Air Force successfully defended the country. Hitler postponed and eventually canceled the invasion. Hitler then made a fateful decision. In June 1941, he launched Operation Barbarossa. This was the invasion of the Soviet Union. He believed he could defeat the Soviets quickly. Initially, German forces made rapid advances. Millions of Soviet soldiers were captured or killed. But the Soviet Union was vast. The harsh Russian winter set in. The German advance stalled outside Moscow. This marked a crucial turning point in the war. The war also brought unimaginable horrors. The Nazis implemented their final solution. This was the systematic genocide of European Jews. It is known as the Holocaust. Millions of Jews were rounded up. They were sent to concentration and extermination camps. Auschwitz-Birkenau became the most infamous death camp. Jews, Roma, Poles, Soviet prisoners of war, and others were murdered. They were killed in gas chambers, shot, or died from starvation and disease. This was the ultimate expression of Nazi brutality. The United States entered the war in December 1941. This followed the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Section 9, Downfall in the Bunker, the Dictator's End, and His Grim Legacy. By 1943, the tide of war had turned against Germany. The Allies, including Britain, the USA, and the Soviet Union, gained strength. Soviet forces began to push the Germans back on the Eastern Front. Allied forces landed in Italy. In June 1944, the Allies launched the D-Day landings. This was in Normandy, France. A new front was opened in Western Europe. Germany was now fighting a desperate war on two fronts. Cities across Germany were heavily bombed by Allied aircraft. Hitler became increasingly isolated and erratic. He refused to accept the reality of Germany's situation. He demanded fanatical resistance from his soldiers and civilians. His health, both physical and mental, deteriorated. An assassination attempt in July 1944, known as the July Plot, failed. Hitler survived the bomb blast. He took brutal revenge on those involved. Thousands were executed. His paranoia and distrust grew deeper. In early 1945, Allied armies closed in on Germany. Soviet troops advanced from the east. American, British, and other Allied forces advanced from the west. Berlin, the German capital, became the final battlefield. Hitler retreated to his underground bunker. This was the Führer bunker, beneath the Reich Chancellery. He continued to issue orders, but his power was gone. The city around him was in ruins. He married his long-term companion Eva Braun in the bunker. On the 30th of April 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide. He shot himself in his bunker study. Eva Braun also took her own life by swallowing cyanide. Their bodies were burned in the Chancellery garden. Hitler wanted to avoid capture by the Soviets. A few days later, on the 7th and 8th of May 1945, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. It left behind a continent devastated. Tens of millions of people had died. Hitler's regime caused immense suffering and destruction. His legacy is one of tyranny, war, and genocide. The world continues to grapple with the horrors of his era.